economy before you get rid of corruption.
Right.
And I mean, I don't think it's. I agree on that, but I'm sure you can go around that. But that's just how many people here for you. And launch your base, get goals to demand, and then protest the hell out of it.
I think that's right. I mean, I spent a lot of time being like philosophy of strategy, and like philosophy of institutions and stuff. And like some of the things that I've thought through that relate to that is like it's not only it's not only good that like when you don't have a specific set of demands. It's not only good because that's maximally inclusive when you need to build people power, but it's also good because there's an added interest that while the agenda is still being set, it's a strong incentive for people to come on board and help set that agenda. But once you get to the point where you even want to start asking questions like the ones you're extremely correctly posing, like what's the trade-off of demand? When's a good time to do it? What are the risks? What demands can be really effectively countered and argued against? You can allow places like Fox News or CNN or whomever to take strong talking points against you. So if we had really strong demands, then Romney wouldn't have said that.
Right.
He would have had to respond to something particular, and he could have taken one of his interns or researchers that figured out how to do this. But when you're thinking about these things, I think we have to think about what are the necessary connections between, if the issue is getting to a point, let's say, where we want to have demands, what are the metrics to measure how much people do you need to do that? What are the metrics of risk of when we issue a particular demand, what are the possible ways that people can respond to that? And therefore, before it's responsible to do that, what are the types of things that we have to have in place? Do we have to have a media team that's developed and experienced enough to do that? Do we have to have 30,000 people to do a counteraction? You know, does that only have to be 10,000? Does that have to be 60? You know, and so like seeing how these things hang together is very interesting.
No, I totally agree.
Intellectual.
Yeah.
Are you young men in college?
Huh?
Are you in college?
I just graduated grad school.
What kind of degree do you have?
Sorry?
What kind of degree do you
I
have?
just finished my master's degree.
In what?
Philosophy.
Yeah. I was reading the newspaper, and there were the people who were talking against this movement.
Like in the mainstream press, you mean?
Right.
Okay.
One of them said something about having having degrees in liberal arts. Like that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel it? Because you have a philosophy degree. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, bad is relative to your perspective. And I think that when someone says bad or good, they don't mean morally bad or good. They mean in an instrumental sense. Will it help you or not help you achieve certain
that's what
goals?
you mean.
And it depends on those goals. So if the goal is to be educated in a way that lets you take your experience of society, think about it, communicate with other people about it, a liberal arts degree is very useful to have. Now, granted, you don't need a liberal arts degree to be able to think about your experience in society. You can do it by talking to your friends or going to the public library, but having experience in, say, communications curriculum may be useful to that. If your interest, on the other hand, is to have knowledge to observe insects and make intelligent hypotheses about what they may or may not do, then a liberal arts degree will not be useful to you. And I think that what that person probably meant, or at least what an issue that often arises when people discuss what is the value, the use value of things, of degrees, they mean jobs. And in that case, there's a serious problem with having liberal arts degrees because it essentially just means that you went to college. And a lot of people have that. And there's a very high ratio of people that have those degrees and the jobs that employers that are willing to take people out of these qualifications. So it's not advantageous at all. But then there's other variables too. It's not just the degree, it's where it's from. So if you have a degree in history from Harvard, you can do a lot of things with that. If you have a degree in history from University of Illinois Champaign, like a lot of my friends do, statistically you're probably going to be working as a barista, and it will take you much longer to find work. So I think specifying the use value is important with that. But I mean, I don't know if that addresses your question, but that's...
No, I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much.
I would also like to add for liberal arts programs, I think the liberal arts bachelor is mainly a step between high school and getting your master. I'm currently looking into doing the liberal arts program, mainly because I don't know yet what I want to do. I have a really wide base of interests, mainly economics, English, and art, and I do not really know yet what I want to do when I grow up. What do I want to do every day, like 8 hours, 12 hours per day? Do I want to be in an office? Do I want to, just what do I want to do? And I think that's why a liberal arts program is really awesome, to explore what you're good at and what you want to do. But I also believe if you get a liberal arts program, you should definitely look into getting a master's afterwards. It's really hard, as you just stated, to find work with only liberal arts program.
Right.
That's my take on it.
It's expensive, and it's interesting. Like, I come from like a relatively privileged family. Like, I mean, we're not really rich or anything, but I mean, my dad was a patent lawyer. My mom was a pharmacist. I grew up in a nice suburb of Chicago, and I'm an only child. So my parents paid for college, which is great. And so for me, getting a liberal arts degree had relatively little economic risk because if it didn't work out, well, you know, I didn't have any investment there. But when it came to grad school, I finished my master's in a year, and I went to a pretty good school. But I paid for that myself by taking out loans. And so even though I was only paying for 1 year, and it's much less than lots of other people have to pay for it, I'm in a place where it comes where my economic obligations to pay back my debt, which are very minimal compared to lots of other people, are still daunting for me. That if I don't find a paying job, I'm interning right now, if I don't find a paying job, in like the next 6 months I'm going to start defaulting on my loans. And I can only do a couple things to delay that long enough to prevent my credit rating from being fucked. So even though I'm a person coming from relatively very high privilege in a world scale and even on a national scale, things like the cost of education is still important to me. Whereas 30 years ago, it wouldn't have been a problem. I mean, my dad made like $100,000 a year. I think my mom made $60,000 a year. If you were to adjust that for inflation 30 years ago, and then factor in what the cost of education was then, which is roughly about a sixth of what it is now, I could have gone all the way through a PhD program, got no funding, have them support me, and have it been completely manageable for them. But now, that's not viable. So I mean, I think that those types of things factor in as well. But I feel okay with all of it. And it's not really hardship. I mean, hardship is people that like don't have a job. It's people that haven't been able to get a slip of paper that makes it easier for them to get a job. So this hardship for me is very minimal. It's real, but it's minimal still.
So what does this movement mean to you?
Well, I just came today. I mean, to me, it's actually, up until now, it's been very academic. I was following the headlines. I was talking to friends of mine that were involved in New York and in Boston. I was in Boston over the weekend, and I did some filming of the movement they had there at the bridge, and I put it on YouTube. And for me, so I showed up today, and I showed up because I'm ideologically sympathetic. I think it's the right thing to be doing. And what it means for me specifically is an opportunity to be part of an organizing community that's trying to set objectives about changing the way our society is structured. And so I have an opportunity to come and participate in that. And that's exciting because that's an opportunity that literally can exist 6 months from now, 6 months ago. Hopefully it will exist 6 months from now. What will that accomplish? I don't know what that will accomplish. And that's not a very good answer because I literally just showed up today, but that's
I thank you for your time, sir. What's your name?
Bill.
Bill? All right, I'm David.
Bill.
Cool,
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.